Hello, lovelies. It's Tuesday. Come on in, let's talk. It's Tuesday, and that means Tuesday's tip today, which is do the work. Where is everybody? Come on in. I'm just sitting here drinking my hot milk mix all by myself. There's one. Come on in. The water's fine. Hello, number 2, number 3. Here they all come. Yay! Today we're going to be talking about paying attention to your thoughts and doing the work. There's Emily. Hi, Joanne. Good to see everybody. Come on in. Let's do some things. Okay, so by the way, on Friday is our Q&A. So if you want to send in your questions early, that would be a great big help to me, because then I can get them, put them together, and don't have to search all over getting them out in a minute. So if you want to send your questions in, I'm always happy to answer your questions. I love answering your questions because there's some really good nutrition questions out there, and people are always asking great stuff. So if I can help, I'm here to help. Hey, Dawn. Hi, Amy. Good to see everybody. There's Joanne. Yes, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. So a couple of things. First of all, what is our quote of the week? Our quote of the week is wonderful. I absolutely love it. Hey, Vanessa and Helen. This is nothing is impossible. As a matter of fact, the word itself says, I'm possible. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? How often have you felt like, I can't do anything right. Everybody else gets this. I don't. I'm a sad sack. I don't have these. I thought I could, but I can't. How many of you have spent a lot of time beating yourself up? And just believing stuff that's just complete nonsense. That's just not the truth. We do that. We all do that. I do that. But the fact is that we have to pay attention to those thoughts. Because if we can pay attention to those thoughts and start to ditch them as they come up, instead of wallowing them, instead of rolling around in them, things can change. How many of you have ever had, and I know I have, you ever had a dog that, it was a puppy really, because I don't think maybe full-grown dogs do this, but I had a puppy, or practically almost a not quite full-grown puppy, and his idea of rolling around in poop was a fun idea. He didn't know better, but he did it. It was just something that dogs do. Anybody ever have that? Rolled around in horse poop. This is when we lived on a farm. Rolled around in poop. Rolling around in poop was one of his fun activities. Well, for the rest of us, I can tell you it was no fun being around a dog who rolled around in poop, because it stunk to high heaven. And that is exactly who we are when we roll around in our negativity. Nobody wants to be around that. It stinks. Am I right? Think about that for half a second. What am I drinking? Hot milk mix. Hot milk mix. Did I turn this around? Oh, shoot. I didn't flip the thing. Sorry. I didn't flip the thing. So what can I tell you? Hot milk mix. It's in the shop, and it helps you if you are going into keto flu. And all I can say is the keto flu is no fun, and it makes you feel crappy, and it gives you aches and pains just like the regular flu. And this is what happens when you're switching fuels. It does. When you go from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner, this is the thing that will help to bridge that gap. Okay, so keep that in mind and go grab it. And by the way, the sprint starts a week from yesterday. So get your supplements ordered. Also, this is the last week for free shipping on supplements, you guys. The last week. So take advantage of all these things. Good heavens. This is how we do stuff. This is how we get it done. So what do we want to do? We have to do the work. We have to do the work of being attentive to what it is that we're thinking. Am I right? you know, it is easy, and it is a reflex. It is a part of what it is, what happens with us when we are starting to change our mind on some things that we really want to change our mind on. We want to stop this constant beating ourselves up. We want to stop with the negative thinking. We want to stop with saying I'll never, and it's just not enough, and everybody else has but I don't, and all of that junk. Like I said, it's like rolling, it's like your dog has rolled around on the poop again inside the house, and everybody says, get him out, get him washed. That is you when you decide to keep on with this negative thinking. It gets stinky out there, guys. And we are emanating this stink because our thoughts become the evidence, become what we live. Then we are finding, and our brains are actively finding the evidence to support the things that we're thinking. And we find it. We find it. And it's a downward spiral. It's depressing. Nothing happens. Our people don't want to be around us. And it's sad. Has anybody ever been in that place? Isn't it depressing? Isn't it awful? I'll tell you, I've been in there too many times. And what I found that has just made me go, oh man, I get it, is being present with my thoughts. Being present with my thoughts and then throwing the ones out that are destroying me. We can destroy ourselves from the inside out. Have you noticed that? We can destroy ourselves from the inside out. And while we're focused on muffin tops and gee, I just don't look good and I wish I looked better, it's the inside of us that's dying inside. We have to stop doing that to ourselves. There is loving that needs to start happening. There's loving that needs to come on alongside of you. And we can neurosculpt, that's a word. In other words, carve new pathways for our brain to the place that we want to go. Simply by discarding the stuff that doesn't work anymore and replacing it with the stuff that does, even when we don't believe it. You know, how many times have you written down? I mean, I have. If I've gone through my journal sometimes and thinking, you know, I've written all this stuff down. None of this has come to pass. And some of it has. But it's the belief in that certain thing and the emotion that goes behind it that propels it into happening. So when we are breaking down and crying and saying, I'll never, it's not going to happen, etc., we are actually strengthening that horrible belief that we have about ourselves. That's what emotion does. That's why I'm telling you all the time, unplug the emotion from it. Unplug the emotion from it so we can learn the lesson. When we unplug the emotion of something awful that's happening or something that we just can't seem to get on top of and look for the lesson, then we have an opportunity to redirect it and to put it into different terms and to make it work on our behalf. That, to me, is the golden opportunity. That, to me, is a place that we can build from. Instead of finding ourselves tearing ourselves apart, we can say, okay, wait a minute, I know what this is. I've done this before. But instead, I'm going to say, you know what? I never, or I can't ever, or all of that stuff just doesn't work because it just puts me into this perpetual place of not having what I want. And what I want is this particular life. I want a life where I'm not obsessing all the time about my body and my muffin top and the way I look and my jeans and how bad I feel and all of that. I want a life that articulates the beauty that's found in God's world. I want a life that is meaningful and purposeful, that brings other people joy. I want a life that I'm proud of. You can't be proud of a life that you're tearing down all the time, you know? And what we find ourselves in this, when we find ourselves in this self-perpetuating problem and pattern, we find ourselves in the place of not going anywhere except to the dark place, except to the place that's depressing and dark and is the same stuff over and over again. It's a negativity that a lot of us have lived with for years and years and years and years. And what I see is when we pull the plug out of the emotion and we instead look at it and say, that is a lesson for me to learn, And that's where it's going to stop, and that's where it's going to end, right there. And then work our way over to the other side and start looking at, now what can I do that's the opposite of that? And that's really kind of the starting place, isn't it? Because we can just start flipping it. Instead of I'll never, we say I'll always. Instead of saying I can't, we say I will. Instead of saying I'm not able, we start saying I am able. I am capable. I have every strength in me that everybody else does. And instead of comparing ourselves, we start comparing ourselves to our own self of what we can do. And going back into the memory bank, this is where experience comes in really handy. And looking back and say, I remember the time when I knew I was thinking I couldn't do it, but I did it anyway. I remember the time where my boss came to me and said, well done, this is a good job. I remember the time when I didn't feel I could do it, but I did it anyway. Those are the things, those are the lessons that we have to harness. I love what Terry just said, no more Groundhog Days for me. Yeah, that's Groundhog Day, living the same thing over and over again. Until we can pull the lesson out, we're going to keep doing it. And that to me is where we get, we get lost. But our brain is looking for things to match up, experiences to match up. So if you've had experience before in the past of, say, losing weight, match up to what was your mindset at the time. Maybe not what you did, because maybe what you did was unhealthy. Maybe what you did was, like taking a bunch of diet drugs or, going on some crazy weight loss thing. But what was your mindset at the time? That's the thing that you can match up to. And, we all get triggered. Triggered's a big word. I'm triggered by this. I'm triggered by that. Triggering is everywhere. And I think we're too easily triggered. But one thing that I know is this, that we all work off of our own experience. So when something happens and when something's a part of our experience, then that's the only place that we can work off of. I recently had somebody who really disagreed with some of my thoughts about fasting, but she was also coming from a place of having a relative who had passed away because of anorexia. So you could say she was triggered by this whole idea of fasting. And fasting is a medical thing and it works for a lot of people, but for her, it triggered something inside of her that just really set off a lot of emotion and a lot of things. Now, we have to look at that. We have to look at things. How do we view things? What kind of lens do we see things through? We can only go off of what our own experience is. But when we expand our vision for ourselves and see, that was part of what I saw, and this is the reason why maybe I was triggered by this or whatever. But I can see in the bigger picture that there's lessons for me to learn out here. I can't just look through that one filtered lens for everything. I understand, and we can be empathetic with how people see things. And this goes especially in this world where everything is polarizing. Politics, religion, food even. People they get mightily upset. And I've gotten some of those emails before, believe me, and messages. They get mighty upset. I have been in a food, I was at a conference one time and I don't know if I ever told you this, standing behind me were two very, probably famous, and probably you know who they were, vegans who were putting me down for my paleo book that had just come out, and were, actively talking about me behind, and I don't know that they didn't know the back of my head, but I was right there and I heard them talking about it and the put downs and all of that. And you know what was interesting to me about it? It was from their own veiled vision, from whatever it was that they could see, but they had no idea on how to look at things from a bigger picture. That's how people are. We're like that. We're like that. We see things only the way we want to see things. We have our little visions, and that's the end of it. We're not going to allow ourselves to go beyond a bigger vision. We're not going to allow ourselves to go beyond something more than what we see. This is true for all of us. We get lost in this small, tiny little tunnel vision, of what we see. But if we can just step back for a minute and start thinking about, what is this discomfort that I feel with this message? Why can't I accept part of this? What is it in it that's triggering me, that's causing me to feel this way? We need to look at that always, don't we? I don't like watching all the stuff that's going on right now on television. I don't like watching all the stuff that's going on in my Facebook feed with this polarizing stuff. And I find inside of me, it's getting me upset. So what do we need to do? For me, I need to step away and not look at this. I don't discuss it. I keep it, outside of what's important. I can't do a thing about what's going on in politics today. I can't do a thing going on with what's going on with people with their religious infighting. I can't do a thing about people getting on each other and ripping each other to shreds because of what they eat. There is nothing I can do about any of that. What I can do, though, is I can take any negative thought that I'm having about myself and I can flip that. I can take any negative thoughts about whatever is happening in my world and look and see, what is it? What is it about that that's getting under my skin? What do I need to look at? We have to be self-examining. And an unexamined life is not worth living. That's what Socrates said. I believe it was Socrates who said that. But it's not worth living. We have to look at everything, and we have to get into the nitty-gritty of what all this stuff is about. And for us, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to our thoughts and not allow ourselves to be carried on this horrible little train down to the dark side. We just do. And it's super easy to do because it is such a well-worn path. And getting to the other side requires us to pay attention. We can't procrastinate that kind of a thing. We can't put it off. We can't just say, well, maybe tomorrow. It requires us to be present in today. It does. And you know what? Here's something I know. That if we can catch a thought at the time that doesn't feel good and say, I can't have that, that's too hard, and it feels really rotten, then maybe ask yourself the question, why not? Why not? Or maybe ask yourself, well, maybe not right yet, but you will. Or maybe you look at the thought and say, no, that yes, you can. Yes, you can. All right, that's what I have for you today. And you know what? This is the stuff that I have been going through myself. Honestly, your brain is always going to want to take you down a place that you don't want to go. So my strong suggestion to you is always, always, always be ready for the fight. Be vigilant, because you are a warrior and you're strong. You've got more in you than you ever thought you did. And don't let down your guard. Keep the vision alive. You are capable. You are able. And you've got this. And don't forget, April 18th is Take Back Your Life workshop here in Brevard, North Carolina. Save the date. We start the Friday before if you choose to join us for the VIP meet and greet with wine and appetizers and the whole bit. And it is going to be quite an experience. We've got about 40, 50 people already coming. I hope you're one of them. All right? Listen, if you have questions, send them into support@savingdinner.com. In the subject line, put question for Leanne, and I will answer it. It's my joy to answer your questions. And I appreciate so much when you share, and I also appreciate when you show up. This to me is the most delightful thing. I love being around you, and I love being a part of your community. So Amy said she just reserved her room this morning. Yay! I can't wait to meet you all. Take care. Peace out, you guys. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.